everybody. I am Dr. Amy Nelson, and I am a naturopathic doctor, and I practice here in Austin, Texas. My background, I worked at the IBS Treatment Center in Santa Monica, and I, studied functional medicine, especially with, things like diarrhea, constipation, inflammatory reactions in the bowel, bacteria overgrowths, and then we did have, a lot of patients who had ulcerative colitis, recovering from colon cancer, IBD, that kind of stuff. The issue, we work in conjunction with medical doctors, so we're not replacing anybody, but we are helping with understanding the root cause of the condition and then getting you to the right treatment if you need it. So I really work with nutrition. I work a lot with just nutrients, and then I work a lot with trying to, help with healing of the tissue, right? And that'll be interesting for today because we're going to talk about ace-mannan, which is actually one of the polysaccharides in aloe, which has amazing healing qualities. And so I wanted to kind of explore that a little bit more, and then kind of show you like how people take aloe, why you would take it, what's the deal with aloe, so we can kind of have a great aloe discussion today. And, if you want to learn more about me, I do have a website. It's dramynelsonnd.com, and I'll link it down in the little notes here. And I post little articles and things like that. I also, if you ever wanted a meet and greet, you can just call my number at 512-412-1072. I'll post that as well. And I work a lot with digestive stuff, but I also work with hormonal issues and neurotransmitter issues. So we'll have more discussions on that. But I love naturopathic medicine, and we can always talk about how my journey, I can tell you, I chose that journey because that's how my brain works. I like to understand the root cause of why something is going on, right? I have, my background is in chemistry and in science. So as a scientist, I worked in blood banking, and then I worked in the nuclear industry for a brief time. And then I decided I wanted to go to medical school. But what I found was there wasn't a lot of investigating the root cause. So in these industries where I was working, I was kind of the deal. Like, you needed to figure out when something was going to be a problem, and so you wanted to see, like, in blood banking, I was in charge of fixing hematology analyzers and making sure my instrument for the day was going to run right. And if it didn't pass controls, then I had to fix it, right? And so in blood banking, I worked with, ELISA testing for screening assays for like HIV and hepatitis and all that kind of stuff. And then I also worked in like the plasma collection, where we would make sure the analyzers, were testing appropriately for making sure we had the right things going on, right? So I was really familiar with test results and how to validate test results and all that kind of thing. And then I moved on to the nuclear industry, which is still kind of similar, but just different, different systems, right? So it's still kind of like working with analytics in that way. So when I decided to go to medical school, I was working in I was working in a psychiatric hospital. That was the first place where I could get patient care experience. And I was taking anatomy, physiology, just like everybody else, get my prereqs ready. And I learned that the GI system is where about, like, say 75, now we say 90% of the serotonin is made. And I realized that everybody's on SSRIs and all these kind of things. So I went to work and I asked the psychiatrist that I was working with, like, hey, how come we're not focusing on the gut health? Like, if they've got irritable bowel and the diarrhea and all this kind of stuff, doesn't that mean that probably their serotonin production from the bowel is off? And then I noticed they're on SSRIs too. So couldn't that affect, what's happening with their depression or with their mental illness? Nope, that's not what we see in practice. I was like, well, makes sense to me, but it wasn't so much the answer, but it was the dismissiveness of it. And that was really weird to me, because these other industries that I worked with promoted questioning and promoted understanding and promoted investigation. And medicine was different. It was like, no, we're going to give this protocol and that's what we're going to do. And if you question it, you might feel uncomfortable. I'm going to make you uncomfortable for that reason. Not all doctors are like that, of course, but there's a dynamic there that I was just a little bit like put off by. And it bothered me a lot. And then when I asked the same, so there's a naturopathic clinic just down the road, and it didn't take me long to, you know, I was exploring and just seeing, okay, I'm going to go preceptor with the naturopathic doctors. I asked them the same question, and they're like, absolutely. You cannot look at mental health without looking at your gut health. But then you also have like your hormonal health and all that kind of stuff works into that. So it was really important for them to investigate all that. And I was really relieved at the level of biochemistry that they presented me with. And I really liked that. And so when I started, you know, just following the naturopathic doctors around, I was like, I really like the way they think and I want to do that. And so that's why I went in that type of, that's why I went that direction. So for me, yeah, I'm so happy about that. So I graduated from NUNM in Oregon, and then I moved to California, and like I told you, worked at IBS Treatment Center. And then for family reasons, I moved out here to Austin. Now, Texas doesn't license naturopathic doctors. So what that means is like your naturopathic schooling, you get trained as a primary care doctor. So you have the core basics as a primary care doctor, especially in your education. And the ND degree is certified by the U.S. Department of Education, right? Like you have to have an undergraduate degree. You have to have core prerequisites, just like medical school. You take a test. I took the MCAT, you know, so you have an admissions test that's taken. You have to have a certain GPA, you know what I mean? You have to you have to do all this stuff, right? So it's the same as getting into medical school. It's competitive. It's, you know, you go through an interview process, all this kind of thing. So you get in and then you take your pharmacology, organ systems, anatomy, physiology, histology. I mean, you don't need me to name it all. And so you take the same like core base, right? And then you do, you start clinical stuff, you know, so you're working as like an intern and you're working in these different kind of pediatrics, oncology, minor surgery, you know. Some people go on into what's called natural childbirth, so they can kind of work into midwifery and stuff like that. So yeah, you'll just kind of whatever you're drawn to, you take these kind of things. Now there's 2 sets of board exams that you'll take, and you there's a board exam you take end of second year, and then there's a board exam you take at the end, right? And then you have to maintain your CEs. So my CEs I maintain from California, right? So just like any licensed program, you have to maintain that. Now, here in Texas, they don't recognize any of that. They say, sorry, you're a consultant. Even though, am I trained to give a head to toe exam? Yes. Am I trained to listen to the heart? Yes. Am I trained to do all of that? Am I trained in minor surgery? Yes. Am I trained in all of that? Yes. They don't allow us to practice, you know, and we're trying to change that really a lot. Like this year, we had a bill in place. We just need a bill sponsor. And we made a lot of contacts though, and it was really helpful. We like working in communities, and we like helping understand, you know, how somebody is sick, and I like working with medical doctors. So I want Texas to do that. I want it to welcome that understanding. It's not about taking away patients. It's not about, you know, like inhibiting somebody else. It's just about helping people, you know. That's what I do this for, you know, because that's what I like, and that's how I, you know, it's how I operate. So what do you do? So anyway, if we can get a bill sponsor, that'd be great, because then we can kind of help, you know, us be used in our fullest way and help Texas out in our fullest way. So naturopathic doctors are licensed in 25 states where they can practice primary care medicine, right? And help you get to the root cause of your metabolic syndrome and to make those changes. And yes, if you need a medication, absolutely, we'll go there. If you need a surgery, for sure, we'll make that referral. So a lot of times I'm just helping with the thought process on how to manage somebody, you know, and it does minimize a ton of burden on the healthcare system. There was a study that came out by Blue Cross Blue Shield that said 70% healthcare savings when you had NDs working as primary care, because we're preventative, right? So a lot of times someone's in crisis, they're going to end up in the ER, right? And when you end up in the ER, that's expensive. And then sometimes they get discharged from the ER and they've got like the ER is kind of a revolving door. So there's recidivism in the ER. So then cardiac patient comes back 2 weeks later. The ER doctor's frustrated because, hey, I just saw you 2 weeks ago, same exact thing. I thought you were going to get I thought you were going to get care. That fell through. You know what I mean? There's just this lack of kind of like primary care to kind of keep people from using the ER as the primary care. And that's where we could definitely add service. We could add support. We could add to that, right? So it is beneficial in all areas of life. You know, it makes the healthcare system less frustrating because, you know, if there's functional problems going on, but the medical doctor's testing doesn't show it, they just know like, hey, you're not sick enough for a medication or surgery. I don't know what's wrong with you. And that's a frustrating thing, like to get told you're fine by the medical doctor, but you're still pretty sick, right? So what happens then is you can fill up that void. You can be like, well, yeah, you're not like pathological, but maybe you've got issue. So here's your issue. We're gonna like cut this down and we can fix this with basics, you know? So that's where you want to be a lot of times. And that's where you can do a really good service for somebody, because then they don't progress down pathology road and end up, you know, like kind of getting frustrated and just, you know, collecting protocols that aren't really fixing anything, right? So I love that idea. And I really want that to be like a thing in Texas like it is in 25 other states, you know? So long story short, let's get back to aloe. Let's study some things that could help you with certain scenarios. Let's say you've got tummy troubles, right? Let's say you've got, we kind of talked about this in a couple different Facebook Lives, where the mucilaginous layer of your digestive system is super important. It actually protects, it's a coating, it protects the tissue, right? And I brought up that study that told that really heartburn isn't about too much stomach acid, it's lack of mucosal layer. And I can try to relink that, but there was that study we talked about a couple weeks ago. So that was really interesting. So when you're helping your heartburn patient out, you're definitely going to say, okay, why is your mucilaginous layer like depleted? Like what's going on there? So there could be a lot of stress and inflammation. Remember, the nervous system is a big, huge component to digestion. We talked last week about not eating in a pressured way over the sink. So who does that? I'm speaking from experience, I guess. So you want to be able to rest and digest. And so that's the main slogan for the parasympathetic system, right? So we need to be restful state. We need to be nourishing the parasympathetic so we can have tone to our upper GI. So if that's getting off, we're depleting that mucilaginous layer and stuff's going on. So let's say you get more inflammation, irritable bowel, irritable, everything, like more symptoms, right? Even like the bacteria overgrowths and stuff like that. Think of it this way, like healthy probiotics don't grow well on inflamed tissue. So if the tissue's inflamed, what's going to happen? SIBO. What's going to happen? Yeast overgrowth. H. pylori is going to love that. It's a little spirochete, likes to like burrow down under the mucilaginous layer. And what does it like to do? Ulcerate. So, ouch, that's not fun. So, how do you fix any of that? Well, you know, rebuilding that mucilaginous layer is super important. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this cool article. You're saying it backwards. One of these days I'll fix that. It's called Ace Mannan. And one of my patients turned me on to this. Ace Mannan is a polysaccharide of the inner leaf of the aloe plant. So it's a polysaccharide, it's just like a type of little sugar, right? And it's in the inner fillet. So remember what aloe looks like. If you haven't seen an aloe plant, you should go see an aloe plant. They're easy to see. You can find them at the grocery store half the time. Sometimes they sell aloe at the grocery store, but it's a real common house plant, right? I think it grows in the desert. Ooh, I should go look that up. I don't know the normal growth of aloe. I'll go look it up, but I think it likes really sandy soil, and You can water the heck out of it. I think it loves water, but it can rot. I've like killed plenty of aloe by having it in the wrong soil that doesn't drain well. So there's that. But if you get aloe to proliferate, oh my gosh, it just goes wild. If it's in the right conditions, it grows real easily. So aloe is a green plant, and you open it up and it's got all this like gel in it, this like jelliness, right? And golly, you can use that on your sunburn, right? So we know a lot of like cosmetics have aloe in them for sun soothing, right? And it's quite soothing. So there's a lot of these neat little like, you know, biological materials in that plant that are actually studied to understand why does it promote healing. And then can you drink it? Yeah, you can actually drink the inner leaf or the plant, and we'll talk about what happens. So that green part of aloe is actually what we call a cathartic laxative. That means you are going to have some diarrhea. So it's taken for like constipation or someone's getting real close to impaction. And I did bring a few show and tell items. This is Super Aloe Plus by Orthomolecular. It is Cape Aloe. And so it is a cathartic laxative. You use this on people who really have a hard time with a bowel movement. But do you use it long term? You don't use any cathartic laxatives long term. That's a bad idea. You're going to use it every once in a blue moon. You're going to use it to bowel retrain somebody. So you're going to want to kind of get, if they're constipated, sometimes they just have a long history of that. So you might use it for a brief time, and that time frame is between you and doctor to figure out. And then you get busy getting the root cause figured out. So you want to study their flora, you want to study their food sensitivities, you want to study their nervous system, you know, to see why is the bowel slowing down. So Cape Aloe or Super Aloe Plus has a couple different formulas. You know, there's a really strong formula and then there's an easier formula to take. But a lot of times we're going to use this as the cathartic laxative to really get the bowels moving. The green part of the plant is the cathartic laxative, right? So just know that, because like if you're reading the label and you see aloe leaf, oh, that's going to make the bowels move, and it's going to do so by kind of irritating the tissue. That's what cathartic laxative means. Osmotic laxative means I'm bringing water to the bowel. It's not inflammatory. I'm just, here's water, more water in the bowel. And so it's less of an inflammatory process. So this, you know, one's a little more effective, of course, like if you are just straight up like, you know, risking impaction or, you know, just really having a hard time with this, then yeah, you'll probably use some aloe. I think it's usually advised that they take 1 or 2 capsules a day. You really need to go up from there. Like if you needed to go up from there, then something's going on. So usually they'll say at bedtime, you know, so you take it at bedtime. You should have a bowel movement in the morning. That's a typical like routine for the bowels, is to bowel movements in the morning, maybe even a secondary bowel movement later that day, depending on when you eat your meals, you know. So that's kind of the normal rhythm of the bowel. So here, yeah, the aloe part, the green part, think of the green part of the plant as a cathartic laxative, but the inner part is the opposite. It's just like soothing, you know. And this one I like a lot. Like this is Lily of the Valley, and it's aloe vera juice. You can see it says inner fillet. I think it's written backwards. Sorry about that. So the inner fillet is a very soothing situation. So everybody's like, I drink aloe. And I'm like, okay. You know, yeah, there's a lot of aloe products out there. And so most of them are going to be this inner fillet, this like where the nice like juicy gel is of the aloe plant. And that's where all these things live, where they're, you know, immunomodulatory, meaning they're helping with healing. They have, I'll just read the list here, immunostimulant, and then, oh wait, I just lost where I was reading. So immunomodulatory, antiviral, antioxidant, antibacterial, you know, so there's a lot of components that's in that gel. So this ace mannan is a type of polysaccharide, and what it does is it actually improves activation for the macrophages. Your macrophages of the bowel are actually the garbage men of the immune system. They're going to help kind of like gobble up damaged tissue, damaged cells, and they're going to phagocytize them. And then you know, like they're kind of famous with like an RNA virus infection, say COVID, right? Was our famous RNA virus infection. And that means the macrophages were going to phagocytize these cells that were invaded with COVID, and then it neutralizes the virus and then kind of like kills it, right? So here, strong macrophage activity, you can imagine, is really, really, really good for the immune system on all fronts. So it helps with cleaning up the tissue. It helps with getting through viral infection that your immune system's never seen before. So activating the macrophages are really important. It also kind of stimulates the T cells. So this is immune modulating, right? So you can see our little promise here. We're thinking, wow, can we get some healing going with this tissue? So if I've got somebody who's got ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, you can see there could be a little application here. And that's what researchers are trying to study, this ACE mannan. Now, I think the only product I found, and I don't have an example of it, is not Research Nutritionals, who is it? PRL, Premier Research Lab, which is here in Austin, Texas. Their aloe does have a standardized extract of ACE mannan. So that was the only one I found where the label said ACE mannan. So I was really thrilled about that. And I'll put a link in my description here if you want. But yeah, Premier Research Labs aloe supplement. I was really happy to see that, because it has this component called ACE mannan. Now, you know what's interesting here is like they do actually report some studies here of improved gingival tissue. So if you have like a receding gum line or something like that, there's this tissue or this study that showed that the ACE mannan was given and they had better gingival fibroblast proliferation. So that means that, and then dental pulp proliferation and periodontal tissue regeneration. What? So oral care, dental care, right? So we're going to see some improvement with like how we can heal your teeth. You know, that would be an awesome idea. So that would actually, be really important for that health. So that was something I learned today. I don't know if you would swish with it. You know, it probably makes sense that you would take a gulp of something like this and swish just like you would with any, you know, kind of like mouthwash or whatever, and then probably swallow it, you know, because you probably want to ingest that. So yeah, I mean, it's all very experimental and very just in the research phase, but I thought that was very, very promising. And something that's on the market now, is that going to hurt you to swish with aloe gel? No, that's not going to do anything bad to you. Also in your inflammatory bowel type stuff, is aloe gel going to be supportive? Yeah, I think it is, you know. So improving that mucilaginous layer, you're going to see that aloe is a really good force. So this study, I should probably just try to, post it, but it goes into the immune enhancement. It's talking about, macrophage release of different cytokines, which are just cell signals that are going to be useful for just improving healing, is kind of the way I can sum that up. And then there's other like immune effects with this. Now, remember, taking too much stimulant laxative is not a great deal. You don't want to do that long term. So if you Google aloe, remember there's components to aloe. The inner fillet, the gel, that juice of the aloe plant, very soothing. You could use that in a long-term way. And what dose? Probably the sky's the limit, honestly. Like, I mean, I don't think there's a strong upper dose, but maybe everything in moderation, right? Like that just makes sense. Like, don't go gangbusters on this if you think that, more is more. I'm going to replace all my food and water with this. Like, that's probably not a good idea. Like, let's not do that. But I think just follow your label instruction. That's also very good, because the researchers of the product you're taking know the label. So that's where I would probably start. And then I'd be working with somebody who kind of studies this stuff, right? So that was interesting. So remember, like the inner part, you can take a ton of it. The outer part is a cathartic laxative, and you're not going to take that very much. So if you were to research this on your own, you'd probably come into contact with that. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to put this article up But yeah, it was really kind of interesting to me because the ace mannan of the aloe gel had some really good immune modulating effects for the bowel. So that's going to help the people who've got, you know, different type of tissue changes like an ulcer or inflamed tissue, or, you know, issues with leaky gut, issues with malabsorption, anything where we're thinking like the intestinal tissue itself is just not really doing its job right, you know. So it's real common in our society. Our food's really inflammatory and it's easy to have problems. So if you want any other information, always welcome to a meet and greet with me. Like I said, 512-412-1072. That's a great number to call. Go to my website. What else? Yeah, and go to texan.org. That's to help us out with the information if you wanted to help with us getting licensure here in Texas. That would be awesome. So yeah, that's all I have to say today. I'm going to try to talk about something more extensive maybe next week. Maybe we'll launch into doing some just basics on the bowel, you know, like bowel health 101. So it may take me a little bit to get that up and running, but I'd like to do that. If you have any other ideas for topics, yeah, shout them out and we'll go from there. So anyway, I suppose that's enough today. So have a great day and we'll see you next week, I think. All right, bye.